The Institute for the Study of War writes about a possible scenario in which Russia and Belarus carry out sabotage operations against Poland. Russia and Belarus may conduct special forces sabotage operations against critical infrastructure in Poland and launch additional drone incursions and blame Ukraine. Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, SVR, baselessly claimed on September 30th that Ukraine is preparing to conduct a false flag attack against critical Polish infrastructure in order to implicate Russia and Belarus. Critical infrastructure, including power and railway lines, power plants, and fuel depots, is said to be at risk. Russia would carry out such an attack with the help of drones. Due to the fact that there will be an attempt to shift the blame onto the Ukrainian side, as has already happened many times, for example in Romania, our special services, especially the Military Counterintelligence Service and the Internal Security Agency, should prevent and counteract such incidents. On the one hand, we are dealing with hybrid sabotage, with many operations carried out without any flag. These operations used to be carried out by so-called little green men. These can be various activities targeting cyberspace, infrastructure, or operations such as the recent drone attack. These are all below the threshold of a classic declaration of war, but something that is intended to cause concern and confusion. According to experts, this is nothing more than a false flag operation, as was the case when Ukraine was accused of the recent drone attack on Poland. The Kremlin, through the Foreign Intelligence Service, or Russian Global Intelligence, is conducting a disinformation campaign, as was the case with the incident of Russian unmanned aerial vehicles violating the airspace of the Republic of Poland. Operations that consist of the Russian services organizing various acts of sabotage that are supposed to suggest that they were carried out by representatives of other countries, in this case Ukraine. A combination of diversion and disinformation. The aim is to cause even more chaos in the public sphere and to try to shift the blame from Russia to, for example, Ukraine. The matter looks all the more suspicious given that for some time now, the Kremlin, the media linked to it, and the Russian services have been loudly proclaiming an alleged Ukrainian provocation. Ukrainian and Polish services are, according to the Russians, to send a special unit consisting of Belarusians and Russians to Poland to carry out diversionary operations, and when captured, they are to claim that they are a special unit and therefore subordinate to the GRU military intelligence. We have been the target of hybrid warfare since at least 2021. We have no doubt about that. It takes many forms. It started with an attack on the Polish border using illegal migrants. Then we had fires. Then we had sabotage groups trying to destroy our critical infrastructure, particularly the infrastructure used to help Ukraine. An American think tank writes about a pattern in the Kremlin's current actions. The Kremlin is likely setting information conditions to blame Ukraine for future attacks that Russia itself may conduct against Poland or other NATO states. Russia similarly accused Ukraine on September 26th of conducting the recent drone incursions into Poland and Romanian airspace to instigate a NATO-Russia war, despite the fact that Polish and Romanian officials attributed the incursions to Russia. The Kremlin has been carrying out false flag operations against Poland for a long time. This type of information is currently being disseminated by the Russian Federation's Foreign Intelligence Service, headed by its chief, Naryshkin, that Poland is preparing to partition Ukraine, that Polish formations are ready to enter Ukrainian territory. Interestingly, one mainstream newspaper today writes about a network of Russian saboteurs broken up a year ago by Poland's Internal Security Agency, who had allegedly smuggled explosives hidden in canned food from Lithuania through Poland to Germany. These are mostly people who came to Poland as refugees from Belarus or Ukraine, from the more Sovietized part of Ukraine, where Russian is spoken. And we know that they were recruited to carry out this type of operation in Poland. The problem is that Polish special services are not only concerned with combating the threat of enemy intelligence and sabotage, but rather with combating political opposition to Prime Minister Donald Tusk's government. And this is because they are headed by people of questionable competence. Some of them were involved in the so-called Polish-Russian diplomatic reset. Because currently, the services are headed by people such as Krzysztof Dusza, deputy head of the Military Counterintelligence Services, who, during the Tusk-Putin diplomatic reset a little under 2 decades ago, organized and implemented cooperation with the Russian services, crowned with an agreement between the Polish Military Counterintelligence and the Russian Federal Security Service. Tusk's coalition has a tendency to select people for important tasks who, in the past, were involved in heavily questionable projects. In an era of Russian provocations and sabotage operations carried out by the Kremlin, Kremlin, it seems even stranger that the services subordinate to Tusk released Colonel Pavel Rubtsov, a spy serving Russian military services. And before leaving for Moscow, the current government services provided the Russian spy with secret information, including how he was detained. This comical level of mismanagement is only possible in Tusk's Poland.
Germany has issued a European arrest warrant for Vladimir Z, a Ukrainian detained in Poland on suspicion of blowing up the Nord Stream gas pipeline. The question is, why is Germany so keen to have the suspect behind bars on our western border? Nord Stream 2, a project that Germany and Russia, its main beneficiaries, had been pushing for years. Above all, this pressure pointed to the political, rather than business, nature of the investment, although neither the climate nor market conditions were favorable. Gas prices were falling, and consumption in Western Europe was further reduced by the pandemic and the crisis in Germany. But the gas pipeline was to be built. Fortunately for us and for Ukraine, this did not happen. Germany has never really abandoned its desire to cooperate with Russia, regardless of who is in power in Russia. It is such a strong alliance that even if there are temporary crises, such as the recent one, the desire to return to these special economic and political relations will always be extremely strong. And this is a signal to us, to Poland, that nothing has changed in geopolitics, that we are where we are, and we are always between Germany and Russia, which will strive to cooperate with each other at the expense of Poland. Now Germany is demanding the extradition of Vladimir Z, a Ukrainian suspected by the German judiciary of involvement in the bombing of the Nord Stream gas pipeline 3 years ago. Vladimir Z has been living in Poland for 3 years. He lives permanently with his wife and children in Pruszków, near Warsaw. He has a construction company there. It was a shock to see my husband being led away in handcuffs. You can't prepare for something like that. When a German court issued a European arrest warrant for him over a year ago, he left for Ukraine. After some time, he returned to Poland. He wanted to buy real estate, and he attracted the attention of the authorities. Poland is allowing itself to be drawn into a narrative that Germany has been producing for years. After these explosions, Germany did not even intend to check or consider other lines of investigation. From the very beginning, they decided to follow the lead of a small boat, a yacht, on which they suspected that a total of 6 Ukrainians were sailing, and divers caused the explosions, as I said, on 3 out of the 4 pipelines. The Germans are demanding the extradition of the Ukrainian because they suspect that he destroyed their critical infrastructure, but he neutralized a dangerous project that would have enabled Russia to engage in political blackmail. This brave Ukrainian, if he did it, of course, because I am not so sure, deserves the highest award from European countries for stopping this disastrous German-Russian project, which gave Putin the opportunity to finance his entire war machine, because this project was extremely beneficial from Putin's point of view, bypassing Poland. That is, giving him the opportunity to use energy blackmail. I believe that the Polish state should treat this Ukrainian as a soldier fighting on the front line against Putin. Radosław Sikorski reportedly said in conversations that he would be ready to grant Vladimir Z asylum in our country and award him a medal. At the same time, the Polish authorities emphasize that nothing has been proven against Vladimir Z yet. He is still only one of the suspects. What does the head of the Polish Ministry of Foreign Affairs have to say about this? Please direct all questions to the Ministry of Justice. As I understand it, the first decision in this case was made by an independent Polish court. But this does not bring credit to Polish diplomacy. Not only Poland is watching, but the whole world is watching, because there is an interest in this issue and the situation of whether a Ukrainian citizen accused of destroying Russian property, i.e. that of Gazprom, could be arrested in Poland for 7 days for this reason. Unfortunately, it turns out that this was the case. But if Poland extradites the Ukrainian to Germany, an even darker scenario may unfold. I'm afraid that if the Polish government decides to extradite Vladimir Z, we may soon see his show, Trial in Warsaw. So I'll do that again. I'm afraid that if the Polish government decides to extradite Vladimir Z, we may soon see his show, Trial in Moscow. I have no doubt that Poland under Donald Tusk rule is, well, one might say, serving Germany. And one of the elements that confirm this is precisely the situation related to Vladimir Z. But that's not all. It turns out that German services were also involved in activities at the Ukrainian suspect's home. Last year, a search was indeed carried out at my client's home where he lives, and these activities were carried out in part incorrectly. That is, both German and Polish officers participated in these search activities. The explosion that damaged the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline occurred in September 2022, 6 months after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Since 2011, Germany had been using Russian gas transmitted via Nord Stream 1, bypassing Poland and Ukraine.
There are reports of further Russian provocations in the field of hybrid warfare on an almost daily basis. On Thursday, we learned about a Russian cutter that approached within about 300 meters of a gas pipeline near Szczecin. The information released to the public is rather vague. This information is not strictly secret, but it would be better if the Russian side did not receive it. Therefore, at this stage, for the safety of Poland and Poles, we cannot disclose any further information. The border guard records several incidents of this type every month. The Polish Ministry of National Defense, like the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Administration, is reluctant to comment on this matter. In fact, we deal with various types of incidents every few days, and unfortunately, they must remain somewhat secret. Russia carries out similar provocations not only in the Baltic Sea, but above all in the airspace. In mid-September, about 20 Russian drones crashed into Poland. The public was only informed about the whole situation after the fact. Our government's communication with citizens is terrible. This creates room for further manipulation. I would expect the government to take real action, coordinated with our partners in NATO and our neighbors in the Baltic Sea basin. Unfortunately, the current ruling coalition has no vision of what to do about this issue. All I can do is hold press conferences. The security of European Union countries is one of the main topics of the informal summit in Copenhagen. For several days, increased activity by Russian drones has been observed over critical Danish infrastructure. This includes the ThyssenKrupp Marine Systems shipyard, which manufactures submarines, an aviation fuel refinery, and the area around the Kiel Canal, an important trade route.
We have one major task ahead of us. We have to make our common Europe so strong that war against us becomes unthinkable. The war was never just about Ukraine. It is about Europe. All our nations, all our citizens, our values, and our freedom.
In connection with the Copenhagen summit, the countries on NATO's eastern flank hoped to reach an agreement on the construction of an anti-drone defense system. However, enthusiasm for this quickly faded. This was due, among other things, to French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. There were voices. For example, Chancellor Merz said he believes that the idea of a drone wall does not guarantee us 100% effectiveness. My response was very honest and quite brutal in its honesty. If someone is looking for 100% methods, a 100% guarantee of security, they will find nothing. Everything indicates that the richest countries in Europe are putting their own interests above security. Baltic companies boast that their anti-road defense technology is ready for implementation. Therefore, closing the discussion at such an early stage seems incomprehensible. Meanwhile, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, contrary to the facts, claims that the issue of anti-drone defense is still on the table. The Polish point of view on the importance of defending the eastern flank has already become widespread. Everything indicates that the current communication strategy on security issues is to put on a brave face. It seems that Ukraine will emerge victorious from the Copenhagen summit. The European Union will allocate another 4 billion euros to military aid to Kyiv. Half of this amount will be spent on the purchase of drones. In terms of internal projects, no concrete details are available at this time.
A group of left-wing activists and other attention seekers set sail on a beautiful cruise across the Mediterranean Sea. Their destination was not the Gaza Strip and the people waiting for help. The crew knew very well they would never get there. They also knew that this would happen. A pro-Palestinian crew led by Greta Thunberg was detained by Israeli authorities. There were also Poles on board, including Franciszek Zerchewski, a member of Donald Tusk's government coalition, who was one of the first to call out for help. An urgent request: intercede on my behalf and of my companions with the Polish authorities. Left-wing activists and politicians live truly interesting lives. This is a propaganda mission. We also remember how Mr. Cherchevsky behaved on the border with Belarus. Without a doubt, humanitarian activities should be carried out by organizations that deal with humanitarian aid on a daily basis and actually help civilians. Donald Tusk, as expected, defends the MP who was eager to gain media attention. My job is not to judge his motives, but to provide consular assistance, just as I would to any other citizen. But the foreign minister emphasizes, I have no hostages to exchange. You are going at your own risk. However, it is clear that in the case of MP Sterchevsky, it is difficult to talk about responsibility. When Islamic immigrants brought in by Alexander Lukashenko stormed the Polish border, he was running along the Polish-Belarusian border with bags filled with supplies for the new arrivals. Mr. Franciszek Sterchevsky has already proven in the past that he feels more comfortable in the role of a happenster than a politician. These were harmful actions on the Polish-Belarusian border. Now he sailed to one of the most dangerous regions in the world with a mission which was at best vaguely defined. Those leftists won't provide any help to anyone. Their goal was simply to promote their leftist formation. This gentleman went without a delegation, so his parliamentary salary should be cut, unless he was sent by the Marshal of the Parliament. But that would be even worse. Well, this is a typical chutzpah organized by leftists. It wouldn't matter if it were his own money, but Mr. Sterchevsky's activities are financed by taxpayers, as is the aid he is now demanding. The war will not end because some member of parliament took part in a cruise. It will not help any Palestinians, but it may harm Poland. Sterchevsky is a member of parliament, so he represents a Polish state. When he ran with a bag on the border with Belarus, he made himself a laughingstock. But above all, he weakened our country at a time of hybrid attack from Belarus. When he officially engages as a Polish MP in a political stunt in a foreign country at a time of huge international crisis, he harms our country and the Polish people. The crew members will probably be deported by Israel. It is true that they did not help the inhabitants of the Gaza Strip, which was to be expected from the outset, but they achieved another important goal. They drew lots of attention to themselves.